Howdy folks, this is the fourth in a series of videos covering homemade, modified, and second-hand lab equipment, mostly for a mineralogy lab, but I've been having a lot of crossover. As you can tell, this is going to cover both PPE, which stands for personal protective equipment, and also electrical sort of appliances. So as you can see, I'm all set to talk about the personal protective equipment first. I guess we'll start here. I find a lot of eyewear at the garage sales and some at thrift stores, and some are really beat up and all scratched up, so you gotta look to see what you buy. You obviously don't buy something in bad shape, but you can definitely find some that are very lightly used, and you can also find some that are still in their packages, like these. And these glasses, it looks like it was torn, but pretty much brand new. What I like to do is find a way to buff out the scratches in plastic lenses. I'm sure you can do it. I've heard you can do it with toothpaste, but it just kind of mucked them up when I tried it. Anyways, if anybody has some good tips on that, you'll have an unlimited supply of eyewear that you can kind of buff up the lenses to be clean enough and good to go. I guess next we'll go over some glove wear. This is actually an oven mitt that I got at a garage sale, and it's made out of that silicone rubber that's heat resistant, so you can pick up hot things. It's got a texture here, so it's non-slip. So I've used that a few times. That's come in handy. Over here we have rubber gloves, and I got a whole box actually before COVID hit, and they're actually kind of turning a little bit yellowish. I don't know how old they are, but they work just fine. I use them a number of times before they tear or something, and then I throw them away. I've also they seem to be popping up a lot more now that COVID is passing by, and there's a lot of gloves and things that have been made and not being used quite as much. So you should be able to find those pretty easy at thrift stores and whatnot. These are actually a pack that my wife got. She got a whole bunch of these really nice leather gloves, and they have a long wrist to them, so they're pretty protective if you're dealing with hot stuff or something that you don't want to get on you, and or something sharp. So I stole a pair, so I have a pair for myself. What else? Oh, I got this lab jacket. I barely ever wear it, but I have worn it a couple times when I wanted to protect my arms in the summer, when I had a t-shirt on and wanted to wear something longer. And I got this at that state surplus store that I might have mentioned before, and so that was kind of cool. At least I look official. At the same state surplus place, I got a roll of this. It's actually Lab Mat disposable absorbent liner, and it's kind of nice. And I paid more for this than I probably ordinarily would have. I paid $5 for this back in 2016, it looks like. But it's kind of nice. I use it to cover my lab project table. I also use it on the lab bench sometimes too. What's nice is it's absorbent paper on the one side, so it absorbs stuff that you might spill. And then the back side is actually plastic covered, so it's not going to soak through and damage what's your tabletop or whatever you have underneath there. So I got a nice size roll of that, and yeah, there's a lot of material on there, so that's well worth $5, I think. And the last thing that I got, and I really didn't want to scare people in the video, otherwise I would have opened it up and put it on. But I got this for $1 at a garage sale. I don't know what the guy was doing with it, but it actually says that it is a suit, chemical protective. So it's a chemical protective suit, but I haven't even bothered to open it up. I guess if I'm doing something really mega dangerous, I guess I would wear this, but I really don't do stuff like that. There's a lot of people on YouTube that do some pretty crazy stuff, but my channel's pretty tame. For $1, I couldn't turn that down. Now let's go over some electrical appliances. This one I actually made myself. It's a magnetic stir bar stirrer. Takes just a magnetic stir bar, and it has an adjustable speed on it. Going to shut the power off to my converter because we are we've been out of power here for the last 24 hours and don't expect to get power back for at least another 24. It's just a DC motor that's rated between, I think, 6 and 20 volts, and this is a 12 volt power supply, a plug-in unit that I got from a thrift store, or I had laying around actually, that was for another appliance. So now I'm using it to power the motor, and it's basically just a wood box with the plexiglass top, and right below it I have the motor mounted with a magnet mounted on it. So I actually control the speed of the motor with this dial, and you can't just put a rheostat on it, because if you do, when you turn down the speed, it'll lose torque and it'll just bog down. So you got to get, I think it's called a motor controller, and you could get them online very, very cheap. And you plug the power into that, and then it does its thing when you adjust the speed, and it goes over to the motor. It would be really nice to have one that's electrically heated, that you can heat things and stir at the same time, but they're really, really expensive, even used. So I use this, and I really haven't had a big need to have to heat and stir at the same time. If I do, I'll maybe heat it ahead of time, and as long as it's not too hot, I'll put it on here and stir it, or I'll just stir it by hand. Here's another item that I got, and I got this used off of Craigslist. It's actually a very nice, basic though, Corning brand pH meter. I almost never use it, but what I do use is pH paper, so that's nice to have, but pH paper will get you by, and it costs hardly anything. The next item I wanted to get was a centrifuge, and actually I tried to build one myself, and I got part way through. And I actually made this holder from the bottom of a jar that I cut out, and I made holes to hold the centrifuge tubes. And I was going to mount that onto actually something just like this, which is a blender. And I ended up making the hole slightly too big to the tubes were sliding out, or the force was so great too, it was spinning so fast that I think the lids might have been coming loose too. So instead of trying to redesign it and go through the whole thing, I decided just to get a used centrifuge. And I got it on eBay, and it works great. It's got a timer and a speed adjustment, which is kind of nice because like I said, I think this was going way too fast for my needs, and I can dial down the speed to whatever I want and put the timer on. And it cost a few bucks. I think it was $40 or $50, but it was worth me as far as not having the hassle of redesigning this thing and trying to get something that works, and also the safety hazard of having something spinning around that fast without having some sort of cover over it, in case something flies off. But I do use this. I actually use it for grinding, especially if I maybe make a chemical and I want to, and I dry it out and it's kind of in clumps. I'll put it in there and pulverize it. And same with this. I got both of these at a yard sale or thrift store, and this is actually a coffee grinder, and it's basically the same thing, but it's smaller. So if you have a smaller sample, this will do a good job of grinding that up for you. As far as heating devices, I see these around, and I got a couple, but they're pretty basic for heating larger glassware. I don't use it too much on Minerology, but I do use it for different things. And it was dirt cheap, works great. Plug it in, you're good to go. And actually, my favorite device are these things, and these are mug warmers. You actually plug them in on your desk, and you put your coffee mug on there, and it stays warm. And I use them for a number of things. I need to keep microscope slides warm while I have some epoxy that I'm gluing something, a rock sample to, and that helps set the epoxy. But I use them mostly, I'll put a watch glass on there or a small beaker, and I can boil off, or not boil, but actually dry out at a slower pace, a sample on there, right on there. So these things are really handy, and they're not too hard to find. And this is good for, maybe more for the collector. It's ultrasonic jewelry cleaner. So it's got a little basket in here. Actually, I think you can put a watch band over that, but you know, you could put different rings and things like that. Put it in the bottom here, and you put cleaning solution in, close it up, and turn it on, and it'll put the ultrasonic vibrations through the materials, and it'll clean off, you know, corrosion and stuff. And that helps with different rock samples. Like I said, it's mostly good for collectors who want to clean up a sample, but a lot of times I want to clean something up before I actually go to take a piece off or whatever. But once again, used, cheap, nice to have on hand. And let's see, last but not least is the amazing black light. So you can have your own wild black light party and see everything glow in the dark. It's just a bulb. You can put it in a standard lamp fitting, and comes in handy for looking for minerals that fluoresce, at least at the longer wavelengths. I do have a flashlight that's specially designed for short wave UV light, which is dangerous to the eyes without protection. But I had to buy that. That would be something that would be very difficult to find. Another item that I made is that's really cool, and I don't use it too much for mineralogy, but I have used it a couple times. And it's a colorimeter. It actually measures the transmittance of light at the various wavelengths. And you know, you got white, a red beam, a green beam, a blue beam, and basically you look for the absorbance of the material, and you can determine concentrations, tell you how much is there, which can be handy sometimes. But I have a couple videos strictly on this item, so you can go back and look to see how it works and see it in use. This is my latest acquisition. It's a toaster oven, and it would be good for heating things up, roasting things, or drying things out. I haven't really had the need to do anything on a larger scale, but I always thought it might come in handy, so I picked it up for only $3. It cleaned up really nice. It wasn't in that bad a shape to begin with. All the functions work. Has a few minor scratches and little dings here and there, but otherwise it's really nice. And so I'll probably get some use out of that at some point. If nothing else, I'll heat up pizzas with it. Okay, so that's it. I hope you found something there that might be useful. If not, I hope you didn't fall asleep. So, if not, you'll wake up sooner or later, and by that time I'll probably have the next one in the series of videos, which there's still going to be a couple more yet. I still have some more topics to cover. So anyways, thanks for watching the video as always, and happy thrift store, garage sale, and flea market shopping.